Welcome to segment 3 of Citizens Forum, being filmed on Wednesday, July the 3rd. Once again, I'd like to thank our volunteer crew and Shaw staff who make it all happen. The guest this segment is John Farquharson. When John was last on, we were just talking about the upcoming CRD open houses to be held about the sewage treatment issue. Now, unfortunately, it wasn't about the whole sewage treatment issue, like do you want it or do you not, but simply about where they were planning to put, I don't even know what.
It was a siting choice. There were two candidate sites, right? The approved one up on the north side of Heartland Dump, and the optional one, which had now just come up, which was on Viewfield Road.
And what are they planning to put there?
They want to put a bioenergy center, biosolids energy center. Okay.
Which is?
Basically, it treats the sludge that they extract from the incoming,
so
wastewater.
it's a sewage sludge treatment center.
Yeah.
Okay.
We'll just call it a BEC, Biosolids Energy Center. Okay. That's so. Anyways, yeah. When I last talked, I was off to the front, so to say, at these attending these open houses, right? And I had concerns, as I expressed last time, that boy, the people consulting on the material that was going to be used at the open houses was basically it was a PR/communications firm. But we had been assured by the commissioner of the implementation committee, Brenda Eaton, that there would be no attempt to promote sewage treatment at these through the contract that they had let to this communications firm. Okay. So I went, and it was kind of interesting because I previewed the material early and was quite concerned about it.
Now you went to virtually every open house that they held.
I mean, I had much better things to do than to play, honesty cop with the CRD. But
it's a good thing for all of us that we have people and citizens who are willing to take on these bodies.
Well, what made it different this time, the last time I did it was with the budget consultation sessions with the City of Victoria, and I was on my own. That was tough. This time there were a whole bunch of people, so it made things a lot easier. And one in particular, so I arrived, the first one, and they're 4 to 8. I couldn't be there at 4 o'clock, so I got there about 4:30, quarter to 5, and I didn't have my hand out, but I'd heard that there was this guy, Warren Walsh, who had some material that he would distribute. So I don't know, 20 minutes later I run into Warren, and lo and behold, he has a bunch of posters in his car. And I said, let's go get them. So we go to the car, and he's got like these wonderful posters that basically provide the other side of the story, if you will, balance to the CRD posters.
So when you go into an open house, and this is why they love to hold open houses, because they control the entire process. They have all their information up on a wall, and
about 20 posters.
And you're taken around.
You walk around.
You walk around.
And they're like, 6, 7, 8 CRD representatives there that you can ask questions of, right?
Now, this is the problem, though, is that what they're promoting is their agenda, which they want.
Well, it
not
is
telling us.
Well, that was what happened. But they have this thing called the public engagement or public consultation framework. And at the foundational level, it's that they commit to provide balanced and objective information so people can, inform themselves and educate themselves. The key word here is balanced. Balanced means that it's not biased, right? It's impartial information. And that wasn't the case at all. Like you say, it was very, very biased. And so we go in with Warren's posters and we stick them up, a lot of them underneath the corresponding CRD posters. And within 1 minute, I was asked to remove them. And I said no, and CRD staff said why? And I said because your stuff is really, really biased. What we've got here is some complementary material that between the two posters, your posters and our posters, there's a balanced presentation. If you just go with your posters, very unbalanced.
So you're saying the public, the citizens, the people who pay for all of this, the people that the CRD is working for, if we go to an open house and we only view their stuff, we're getting a biased.
That's my experience so far. Okay, I don't know. I mean, that's my experience.
Well, I really commend the two of you for putting up alternative posters, because that's what we have to do. We cannot allow these people to just manipulate us anymore. It's too dangerous.
Well, it was interesting though, because we got asked to take them down, and we said no, and then I pointed out, and they said why. I said, well, your stuff is really biased, and they said, well, give me an example. So I showed a couple of examples. It wasn't very hard to do, and then they just left us alone after that. But there was this one poster in particular, and it said, what's it like to have a biosolids energy center in your neighborhood?
And remember, that's a sewage sludge.
It's a sludge plant.
Yeah,
is basically
in your
what it
neighborhood.
is.
So
what's it like to have it as a neighbor, right? And so they have a bunch of copy on this poster about odor, noise, so on and so forth, what it looks like. Then down in the corner, they have this picture of the Kelowna wastewater facility. Okay, so when you read the poster and you look at the picture down the right, and the Kelowna wastewater facility has houses and schools right up next to it. Okay, so if a picture's worth 1,000 words, this was worth 10,000 words, because it says everything they wanted to say. Hey, no problem. Look at this. Houses right next door, about 200, 300, 400 houses, right close. Trick was, that picture of that facility didn't have a biosolids energy center in it. It was 28 kilometers outside of town. So did they say that this was a bioenergy center? No. But when you read all of the surrounding copy, and the poster board is entitled, what's it like to have one next door to you, or in your neighborhood?
And then they show a picture of
of
something.
So I got really pretty cranky, and so I called a couple of staff over and said, you show me how this isn't as misleading. You show me how this is balanced and impartial and all that kind of stuff. And they couldn't. They just tried and couldn't, and hung their heads and walked away. So then a third staff member came over. There's a lot of people there, like over 200 people went through. So all of a sudden there's a lot of attention around this one particular poster, and then Warren's poster is underneath, and it says the truth about the Kelowna wastewater facility. And it shows a picture of what it was like when it was built. It tells you that the sludge is actually driven or trucked 38 kilometers outside of town, and so on. So people were, pretty cranky. And so this third guy comes down, and I say, can you defend this? And, well, no, not really. And I said, well, I'd like it not to be at any future open houses. Well, okay, we'll see what we can do about that. Next open house I went to, it was gone. This was good. So on the Wednesday morning, I phoned the CRD and said, thank you very much for taking down the poster. Could you also take it off the website? And could you also take it out of the discussion guides, because the discussion guides had the same picture, slightly different copy, but essentially the same copy. What's it like to have it as a neighbor? So they took it off the website, which I commend them on, but unfortunately the discussion guides, and everybody got one at the open houses, right, were already printed, so they couldn't do anything about the offending picture, okay? So I said, okay, I'm just going to come there and stand at the end of the counter, and I'm going to warn everybody that this is not a biosolids energy center. And that's what I did for 5 sessions. It was,
Now,
I shouldn't have to do that.
No, I think that's the point. Why are our elected representatives and the staff we pay trying to manipulate us? And this is a very important question, because it's not only happening here at a CRD open house, it seems to be happening on virtually every important issue at the municipal, provincial, and federal levels. I mean, it's out of control. And I've thought about this a lot over the past few months. And it seems to be what happens is we elect these people to the city government, provincial government, and the federal government to represent us. And yet, once elected, they seem to be convinced one way or another that another agenda, someone else's agenda, is what they should buy into. And they end up feeling that their job is to manipulate us into following somebody else's agenda.
With our money.
With our money?
That's the part that kills me. If I go to an Enbridge pipeline open house, I know that it's going to be a public relations. I know the information is going to be biased. Okay, I go in there with that expectation. I've been promised nothing better, and they're using their money for their advertising. When you go to a CRD open house or you go to a City of Victoria open house, they have the same framework. You're promised balanced and objective information. That's what you're promised, ground zero, right? And they don't deliver. And then they use your money to basically do a public relations spin thing.
Yeah, the people who are guiding you around these various posters and the people who made up these posters all work for us. And yet, at bottom, they're not working for us. They're manipulating us into believing an agenda that someone else seems to create.
Well, I mean, I went and did a presentation today because they had a vote on the Viewfield site whether to pull it off the table as in a consideration. And you know, you get 3 minutes to do your thing, right? So in 3 minutes, I recounted my experience and basically said, you guys have taken a major hit in the trust department, because I talked to over 100 people, well over 100 people, and advised them of this misleading picture. And the overwhelming response from folks was, they're lying to us. And I said, well, no, technically it's not a lie, because they haven't said that this is a bioenergy center, right? And they said, well, it's very misleading. And I said, yeah, very, very misleading. And you know, as my mother used to say, the truth cleverly told is the biggest lie of all.
Yes,
and that's
exactly right. And they know it. They know that the truth cleverly told is the biggest lie of all, and they use that against us while we're paying them.
I know. So anyways, I went down, did my 3-minute spiel, and it was interesting to listen. So anyways, the good news is that they hurried things along and didn't even wait for the final report of all these open houses and the feedback. They just voted today unanimously to pull the Viewfield site off the table for consideration as a biosolids energy center.
Now, I think that's a good decision, but the decision we're left with, which is to pump it right through the city out to the Heartland site in a pipeline that's going to be built right through the city, is also crazy. And even more so, the entire sewage treatment plan, the $700 million plan, seems to be environmentally harmful as well as extremely expensive, and that, bottom line, is the biggest problem.
Yeah, but it just seems like the good folks of Viewfield, they push back.
Yes.
That's what they did. Okay, they contested the decision of the CRD to consider a site in their, you know, in their backyard, so to say.
And they had the support of Esquimalt City Council, which is very important.
They did, which will be the next opportunity for, you know, people to push back, which will be the Esquimalt's decision on the rezoning application for the McLaughlin wastewater treatment facility. And if that gets turned down, then it just seems to me it's a wonderful opportunity to hit the pause button. There's a 2-year buffer in there between the 2020 regulated startup requirement. This is supposed to be finished in 2018. So if the Viewfield folks, you know, model pushing back, contesting, and the you know, Esquimalt Council follows suit, pushes back, then maybe they'll give some sort of courage to the CRD folks. Maybe they'll begin to push back, contest what's been imposed on them by the provincial and federal regulatory bodies.
And you want to talk about the responsibility of our elected representatives to push back. If they're being directed, the CRD is being directed by higher levels of government to do something that the public, I think a large segment of the public, feels is not in their interest.
Yeah.
But instead of pushing back, our elected representatives feel it's their duty to take on this other agenda coming down from the higher levels of government and sell us on it, or push it down our throats if they can't sell us on it.
Yeah, it's unfortunate because you know, when I elect somebody, I, you know, expect a lot, of course. But what I'm beginning to realize is that the one thing I would like most of all is just some you know, courage to, you know, to push back, contest this decision. You might not win in the end, but fair enough. But at least try. You know, has anybody, you know, appealed the directive by the province? Has anybody asked to, you know, really in a very assertive way, asked to get put into a 2030 category rather than a 2020
Now let's just talk about that, because the reason things are moving ahead as quickly as they are with this sewage treatment plant is that the federal government has mandated, I guess, that all of this has to be finished and completed by 2020.
Because we're high priority.
Because we are a high priority area, meaning that we're creating so much damage that the federal government, meaning Mr. Harper, the great friend of the environment, wants the environment protected immediately. Now the science seems to say that there's less damage being done by what we're doing now than if we try to bring the problem onto the land and solve it here. Am I correct in
Well, the
that?
federal regulations is an end of pipe regulation. One size fits all. It doesn't matter if you're dumping your sewage in a pond or the Halifax Harbor or the unique situation that we have here. If it exceeds 100 parts per million at the end of the pipe, the receiving environment, like I say, whether it's a pond or a river or a lake, they don't give any consideration to that.
Now, if it was a pond or a river or a lake that we were dumping our sewage into, we'd all be saying we have to treat it, and as best we possibly can. But we have a situation here where we have massive amounts of water moving back and forth every day, and in fact, perhaps treating the sewage as best as it can possibly be treated.
That's the consensus of the marine scientists up at the University of Victoria. And again, there's never been a scientist who will contest their findings that what's going on right now is quite environmentally sound. Is it sustainable forever? Don't know.
So which brings us back to what we were originally talking about. Why are our municipal politicians and our paid staff manipulating us into doing something that does not seem to be in our best interest in any way, shape, or form?
Because they've been told by the regulatory bodies, and they've got money on the table. And, I had talked to some of the politicians at these open houses, and they turn to you with a very, grave face and say, what are you suggesting, that we should put at risk the funding that's on the table, that we should put at risk having fines of $300,000 a day if we don't comply, and in the end having to do it all ourselves on our own nickel? Is that what you want to put that at risk? And it's a scary scenario, but an equally scary scenario is to find out 5-6 years from now that the provincial and federal regulators said, boy, we sure didn't get any pushback from the CRD. Can't believe how easy those guys were. They just fell right into line. That's the risk.
So, I mean, it's an important issue. It's a huge issue. It's going to cost at least $700 million, probably well over $1 billion by the time they're done. And it's taking money away that we need to spend better. That's the situation. Thank you, John Farquharson.
Hey, thank you.
And thank you for all your work on this, and for all the people who are working on this.
Hundreds and hundreds of people gave a lot of time.
And thanks for watching Citizens Forum. Bye-bye.